All right, here we go. Today we have former NYPD detective and DEA and FBI task force officer Bill Courtney. Welcome to VladTV.
Thanks for having me, Vlad. I appreciate it.
Well, you have a lot of interesting stories that we're going to go into today, but I want to start in the very beginning. So you were born and raised in the Bronx.
Correct.
Okay, and what made you want to join law enforcement?
My father was a cop. He was, I guess what you'd call an undercover detective. And my family has a history in the NYPD going back to the 1800s.
1800s?
So I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And I was a music kid, went to all the clubs, bars, hung out. Everything was music. But at the end of the day, I had no talent. So it was take the civil service exam and become a cop, you know.
Okay, so you graduated the police academy.
Correct.
In 83?
Yeah.
You became a cop. And you first started working on robberies.
Yeah, I was, I paid my dues in uniform for a bit and then went into plainclothes units, and they were all, looking for guys doing, strong arm and gunpoint robberies. And then from there, I went into the detective bureau, and that's all I did was like pattern robberies, commercial robberies, things like that. And then later on, I started to get into the robbery of drug dealers and that type of thing.
Okay, and for those that don't know, what's the difference between being a cop and being a detective?
Yeah, so in the NYPD, you used to have to take a career path choice, whether you went into narcotics or you were into a robbery squad. And after you were there for a certain amount of time, I think now you have to be there 18 months. You would get promoted to detective. And then from there, you could end up in a variety of places. Precinct detective, homicide units, all sorts of specialized units, robbery squads, homicide squads. And, I was lucky I got to travel around and I was in a lot of really good units and met a lot of great guys, a lot of great, talented guys. And was really, really lucky and fortunate to have lived in that life. I mean, it was rocking and rolling all the time, a lot of fun.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the cases that you worked on. And let's start with the Supreme Team case.
Yeah, so I first started to become aware of a lot of the 5% gangs in New York. Most of them were in Queens, Canarsie, Brooklyn, Long Island. And so I knew a little bit about them and their history. And then one day I happened to be in the 103rd Precinct in Queens, and a detective showed me a letter about the Supreme Team. And this guy, Kenneth McGriff, he's laundering all his drug money through Murder Inc. records. He financed a film. And he's, his history, of course. Everything about the Supreme Team was in this letter, and, you got to do something kind of thing. And so knowing the history of the Supreme Team, the history of Eddie Byrne, the police officer that was murdered, and all those violent crews back then, right away the case kind of appealed to me. And then, of course, there was the music side of it, and this whole 50 Cent versus Murder Inc. thing that really was interesting. And I got to pick and choose cases, and I was like, I'm taking this one. This is a good one. Yeah.
Okay, so the Supreme Team, you worked on this case for 5 years.
Yeah, if not longer, yeah.
And did you actually meet Kenneth Supreme McGriff?
Well, I met him. The first time I met him was when I arrested him in Miami at 2:00 in the morning. He was naked with a girl in bed, and I was kind of surprised to see us. I think it was like 3 days after Christmas. So that was the first time I met him. And after that, it was in the courtroom, years later. When we arrested him, this girl started going berserk in the hotel room, and he was like, hey, calm down. They're just doing their jobs. He was, the gentleman gangster, wasn't excitable, wasn't, he definitely had some charm and charisma to him. And we had a nice little conversation on our way over to the lockup. We had a warrant, I guess, that came off of his indictment in the Eastern District. So, and then from there, it was, tightening up the case. And then there was all sorts of craziness with the the IRS part of the case with the Gotti brothers and all that. But that was the beginning of the wild ride with the whole thing. And,
Okay, so Supreme Team, in terms of their operation, how much money do you think they made with drugs and so forth?
you know, the feds used to come up with crazy numbers on them, like, you know, millions of dollars, you know, a year, thousands of dollars a day, back in the crack era. And then Supreme was fortunate at that time, I guess you might say, in that he pled out to a conspiracy, I believe, and went to jail and left the Supreme Team to his nephew, Gerald Miller, who street name was Prince. And that's when the Supreme Team got really violent. So they had the Baisley projects. They had a lot of different spots in Queens, mostly the crack trade. They murdered their sources of supply. At one time, 2 Colombian drug dealers were baseball batted to death and dumped out in some park in Queens, I think near Kennedy Airport. Super violent guys, violent for no reason, brought a lot of attention to themselves. And one by one, they got picked off. You know, the Supreme Team back then was guys like Prince, Baby Wise, Green Eyed Born, God B. These are all like 5%er names. And they all started getting picked off. And by the time Supreme came out of jail for his conspiracy, the world had changed a lot. The rap industry had changed a lot. You know, he was out when it was like guys like, you know, all the early hip hop kind of Def Jam groups. And so the world had changed. And yeah, he came out for the, I guess, the second wave of hip hop.
Well, I remember 50 Cent had a song called Ghetto Quran.
Sure, I know it, yeah.
And it starts off like this. He said, yo, when you hear talk of the South Side, you hear talk of the team. See N-words, feared Prince and respected Preem. For all you slow motherfuckers, I'ma break it down iller. See, Preem was the businessman and Prince was the killer.
Yeah, I know.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I had seen a lot of communications between Supreme and the Gotti brothers from their two-way pagers. And, you know, Prince was always reaching out from jail with different ideas. They wanted to make a movie about him. They wanted to make a show about him. And he was one of these guys, he went to jail. He was, you know, he's a sociopath and a psychopath. And of course, like every guy in jail with nothing to do, he reads Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and all those jailhouse books. And McGriff was bringing messages out to the Gotti brothers. And I think they had actually went to see him at one point. And, you know, to pay homage to a guy who baseball bats his source of supply to death and all that was strange. I mean, Supreme, I understand. He can give you protection. You get the street cred guy with you and your entourage. But Prince was, you know, he's just like, you know, he's the bottom. I mean, he's a bad guy, and for no reason.
How many people did Prince kill?
You know, I don't know the numbers. I probably did at one time. The senseless murder of those 2 drug dealers always stuck out in my head. But then, you know, just lots of acts of violence. People didn't have their money right. You know, they were getting severe beatdowns and people getting shot for no reason. You know, and I don't know why, but guys like that, Fat Cat Nichols, Pappy Mason, they all thought they could get away with it. It was going to go on forever. It was very short-sighted. And how people who, I don't know if you've been out in that area of Queens, but it's not like tall project buildings all over the place. There's lots of row houses and stuff. And it always kind of surprised me that this super violence came out of what looks like an idyllic middle-class neighborhood. And it was just kind of a strange thing, you know, and guys who were more violent than anyone else in New York City at the time, too, you know.
Okay, well, you mentioned Pappy Mason.
Yeah.
And I've done some interviews around Pappy. Did you get to meet Pappy at one point?
No, I met Fat Cat I got permission from Witness Security to go see him in FCI Marana, which is a jail down in Central Florida, not too far from Tallahassee. And I asked him questions about the Supreme Team, et cetera. And, you know, we just had a kind of a normal conversation about the day and stuff like that. But he couldn't provide me with any current information. He had to talk to me because he was still obligated to fulfill his cooperation agreement from way back when. But I didn't get anything out of it. And then I found out later he was running some kind of criminal enterprise from within the jail using the phones that weren't recorded, the phones that were meant for conversations between you and your attorney. And they threw him out of WITSEC, and he ended up in state prison. That's the last I heard. So,
Okay, and this is Fat Cat you're talking about.
this is Fat Cat, yeah. So, but Pappy Mason never, I wouldn't even go in a room with the guy, you know, in that he is solely responsible for the murder of Eddie Byrne and for no reason whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the situation. So, from what I understand, I've talked to a few people about this. Pappy Mason hated cops.
Sure.
He had this real, you know, I mean, a lot of these guys didn't like cops, but Pappy in particular hated cops. I guess he had been abused by some cops and had like a real grudge against police in general. So at one point, he was locked up. And there was this immigrant guy that was living right there where all the drugs were being sold.
Arjun, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he would always call the police to report drug dealers
Right.
in front of his building. So at one point, NYPD put a patrol car in front of his house. And in the patrol car was rookie cop Edward Byrne.
Right.
Did you ever know Edward?
I did not. I knew people who did know him. He came from a police family. His brother was an FBI agent, and his father was I think he retired as a lieutenant. Yeah, the reason they put a car there was also there was death threats made to Arjun, who was kind of acting as a community activist in that he did not want drug sales on his block, like, you know, and was a concerned citizen and stepped forward. You know, the murder of Eddie Byrne changed narcotics law enforcement citywide after that. And of course, everything had gone wild because of the introduction of crack into, you know, the drug game.
All right, Eddie Byrne was 22 years old.
Yeah.
So he was parked in front of this guy's house. And Pappy Mason basically sent 4 guys to go kill him.
Yeah. Well, there's a story that, there's a couple of stories that, and I don't know if they're true, but Pappy Mason had gotten a ticket for drinking beer in public or something like a day or two before. And that's really what infuriated him, put him over the edge and was like, let's get even. Some even said that the cop who gave him the ticket might have been Eddie Byrne. I don't know if it's true or not. That actually came from within jail. And it came from, it was either Scott Cobb or one of the other guys on that case who were in that car. But yeah, they was doing it to send a message. They were really out of control that on both sides, including Fat Cat. They had parole officers murdered. They were out of control. And so they ordered the hit on whoever was guarding Arjun's house. And from there, the NYPD obviously responded with like extreme force and created a unit called TNT, which was going to be a citywide narcotics unit. And it was going to just devastate and flood neighborhoods where these problems occurred. And so what they essentially did by murdering Eddie Byrne was start this warfare on drugs in New York, and we're ruining it basically for everybody else who were selling drugs without the violence, without the, you know, the crazy stuff that was going on. And it really, it was a nationwide thing. People, you know, presidents spoke about it and met with the Byrne family, and I think it might have been Bush or Reagan.
Well, when George H.W. Bush was running for president,
right,
he actually carried Edward Byrne's badge.
Right.
And would pull it out at rallies.
Yeah.
And said, when I become president, I'm going to end, you know, this crack that's running through our streets, and I'm going to shut down the drug business and so forth. So Edward Byrne became a symbol of the war on drugs.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
And you know, and so a young kid growing up in Queens with who's on the border and life doesn't know which way they're going to go, good or bad. These guys were like legendary. and that also is reflected in the music and things of the time. And so that always interested me too. And that's why I really was excited about picking that case up.
Well, one of the guys that killed Edward Byrne actually just came home.
Yeah. I think it was Scott Cobb, if I'm not mistaken.
Possibly.
And and I think there's one more due out. Yeah, I got tons of paperwork on all those guys. It's so hard to remember everyone's names after those years, But yeah, I knew all those players, and it was a terrible thing.
How do they prove that Pappy Mason was the one that put the hit out?
I don't remember exactly how, that case, I was still a rookie cop when that case happened for the most part. So before my time, and I know I've heard the story, but I couldn't accurately tell you at this time. But if you reminded me, I might remember how some of the stuff went down. A guy named Philly Panzarella was a homicide sergeant back then, and he was, the guy who really put all those cases together.
Well, you met with Fat Cat, and you actually asked him why Pappy Mason had Edward Byrne killed.
No, we did speak about it, but I didn't want to, I don't like speaking about past cases with people because they're already convicted and it wasn't my case. So I just said, hey, was more interested in the Supreme Team and Kenneth McGriff and what he might know, what he's up to, and does he know anything about these, murder inc guys, that kind of thing. And it was like a shot in the dark. And because I ran around with the feds, I had access to those guys, so why not do it? You never know.
Once again, in 50 Cent's Ghetto Quran, there's a line in there. He said, as a youth, all I ever did was sell crack. I used to idolize Cat, Fat Cat. Hurt me to my heart to hear that N-word snitched on Pap. How he go out like that?
Yeah, well, he got put in a bad position.
Fat Cat.
Yeah, after it. He needed to cooperate. They had threatened him with, I think, locking up his wife, and they might have even locked her up at one point for, being a part of the conspiracy or money laundering charges, etc. So, hey, look, he didn't have to, but he did. And it was better for him to do his time in the feds in a WITSEC facility than it would have been in a state prison. Yeah, I still think he did it to save his ass. I don't think it was entirely because of the tactics of law enforcement by going after members of his family who were culpable in the different conspiracy he was doing. They had the wives watching the money, taking bags here and there. So they weren't, innocents in the whole thing,
What exactly did he say about Pappy Mason?
That I don't know.
But he did cooperate against Pappy Mason.
I know he did say that that Pappy had told him what he wanted to do, and he told him not to do it. That I know, but not much else.
Is he still locked up, Fat Cat?
Yeah, he's in state prison somewhere.
Okay, so he ended up in state prison eventually.
Yeah, he got thrown out of WITSEC. And so he had, the deal was he would be able to do his time in Club Fed, and now he's in some horrible state prison upstate New York.
Okay. Do you think he's ever getting out?
Hopefully not, but, who knows? I mean, strange things happen. There's a lot of sociopaths, psychopaths in there. A lot of guys who were in for drug. Like if we couldn't get you on a homicide back in the day and you ran a drug crew, when they changed the drug sentencing guidelines for crack, you could get more time locking a guy up on a conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine than you could for a murder that he committed, let's say, in the Bronx. And so there's a lot of guys who are in there on drug cases now who are really violent guys. And the way things are going, a lot of them will probably make their way out.
Well, yeah, I remember at one point, Fat Cat's house got firebombed.
Yeah.
And people died. People got badly burned.
Yes. I think a sister or something like that, right?
It was a real mess. Like the level of violence, I mean, not only the quantity of the violence, but the intensity of the violence during that time was insane.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever talked to Glaze.
I have.
Yeah.
Brian Glaze Gibbs, yeah.
Yeah, he would know all that stuff too. He was around back then. I don't know when he went in, but he was around for that stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, Glaze had a whole bunch of murders and he ended up cooperating.
Right.
And then that's how he was able to come home.
Right.
And I also interviewed Bimmy, who was part of the Supreme team.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Okay. And Bimmy never really did any real jail time. I mean, I think he did a little something and then he came home and he was done.
Yeah.
Why do you think Bimmy was able to just really avoid these really harsh sentences like that?
Well, I've heard that, I heard that lately everyone's trying to say that Bimmy was a snitch or whatever. If he was, it would be like small-time snitch, like for the local, detective unit in one of the precincts or something. But I never heard of him being a snitch in narcotics or any of the other bigger units. But he, he was around back in the day and all that. He ended up at Def Jam. I don't know what to make of him. I mean, he was also around with Prince when Preem was away. Do I think he was a rat? No. I mean, look, everybody now has these conspiracies where the guy's a rat, and then you say, well, show me the paperwork, or show me the reduction in his sentence, and then they can't. And then it doesn't matter to them. They just say it's a government conspiracy, there's a shadow government, law enforcement works in some other secret court somewhere, and that's just not true. So, but that's not to say that you couldn't be and inform a lot of people who were big drug traffickers. I know, and you've probably interviewed who were government, who were informants for either local PDs or the feds, and it was to get rid of the competition, or maybe to save their ass from possible murder or whatever. So there are tons of snitches out there, and at very high levels. So,
well, one of the guys that was around during all this time was E Money Bags.
Yes.
Did you ever deal with him directly?
Never dealt with him directly, but his case was covered under my trial with the Supreme team, his murder case.
Okay, so E Money Bags was a known guy. He was also a rapper.
Right.
And at one point, him and Supreme got into a beef over a car.
Yes. So there was a guy named Spencer Crump from New Jersey, and he was one of these guys who'd get you cars, so how illegitimate it was, I don't know. It was one of those deals where if you need a car, usually, a nice car, like a flashy car, he would get them some kind of weird lease agreement or whatever. And the whole thing was like half fugazi, but he'd get you the car. So Supreme hooked E up with this guy, Spencer. Somewhere along the line, it went bad. I think E might have changed his mind. It was taking too long. He wanted some other kind of car. And then he wanted his down payment back. And it wasn't happening. And for whatever reason, and McGriff and him had a blowout over it. Got to the point where they had an argument in person, and then E pulled out a gun to shoot Supreme and ended up shooting. Well, he pulled out a gun, fired some rounds. I don't know what his intentions were. I'm going to assume to harm Supreme, but Supreme's number one lieutenant, Black Just, Colbert Johnson, he gets shot in the leg. Supreme drives him to Jamaica Hospital, pulls him out of the car, and he ends up bleeding out of his femoral artery and dies.
Did he actually put him in the hospital first or no?
He drove him to the hospital. You see him rip him out of the car, and then he takes off.
Oh, so just drops him off the front door?
Yeah.
Okay.
He alerted whoever was out there. But, and so now E Moneybags goes into hiding. I was actually privileged. I had an informant call this woman, Cherry. I forget her last name, but she used to date both E and Black Just. And at one time, on the phone call, she says, that E Moneybags was really upset that she was now dating Black Just, and he was talking about going after him and everything else. And so she told Black Just, and he went and had a sit down with E. And tried to calm him down. And apparently it was all worked out. So there is some speculation by some people that he didn't really care if he hit Black Just or not. But he always told the story that he was sorry he got hit, and, it wasn't his intention.
Okay, so this shooting happens. Black Just gets killed.
Right.
Supreme doesn't get hit. So you talked about how after that, Supreme wanted E-Money Bags dead.
Yes, amongst other people, yeah.
Okay. And not only did he want him dead, but he wanted it filmed.
Yeah. So there came a time when there was a double homicide in Maryland, and two drug dealers from New York. One's name was K-Ron Claret. He was an associate of Supreme's. He and his bodyguard or buddy end up dead outside a condo in Owings Mills, Maryland. And they set up the scene. They find out that they were going to an apartment there. They get a search warrant for the apartment and find, amongst other things, drug paraphernalia, but Supreme's personal effects. One of those things was a VHS cassette. So they do their due diligence. They find out who Supreme is. They make some calls, and I end up going down, spending several trips down to Owings Mills to visit with members of the Baltimore County Homicide Squad. And they produced this tape. So we pop it in, and I'm watching it, and it's a woman speaking, and she's holding up a video camera, looking out the window and saying, "You better hurry, he's out." They're bringing him a plate of food, and there's basically E sitting in his truck, and the family who's having a barbecue at this house, and they're bringing food back and forth. And he wasn't paying attention. He wasn't looking in his mirrors. And she guided the hit team in to kill him. Supreme had assembled a team of guys. This guy, Manuel Mosley, used to go by the name of Manny Dog. He put this hit team together. He had guys like eBay from World's Crew, some other guys he knew from or were recommended by Supreme. They had been living in a house out there, responded to phone calls like E's over here, 50's over there, Big Nose Troy's over here. And they were like a rapid response team of hitmen who would just go out looking for him. And on all that day, she was guiding them in to kill E, and they did it. So.
Okay, and this happened outside of Stretch's house.
Yes.
Stretch, who later on would roll around with Tupac.
Yeah, well, this is after Stretch is dead.
Oh, this is after his death?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and his brother lived at the house. I think his brother's street name was Majesty or Majestic. Okay. I think it was Majesty for some reason. It was like a 5%er name. And yeah, so they're having their little barbecue, and little does he know she's guiding this hit team in. So, and then I think he gets killed first. And he was a crazy guy, E. He was from the other side of Queens, and he was a robber and a hustler and, a real violent kid. And he was kind of tight with Big Nose Troy, Troy Singleton. And they were two guys that pushed back against Supreme. Once they went at odds, they would take shots at different guys here and there that were tight with Supreme. They're street guys from Murder Inc. Records. So Supreme looked really weak at that point when he's got these two youngins who are just like, screw you, we'll do whatever we want to do. You've been away. And so he had to go first, though, I would assume, because Black Just was a well-respected guy in Queens, and he was a gentleman gangster, if there is such a thing. So,
okay, so the woman who filmed the incident and actually called in the guys to kill him,
Nicole Brown,
she was a crackhead.
Yeah, she was all banged up. I mean, like a child. Dealing with her was like dealing with like a a 10-year-old bratty kid. Yeah, she admitted to her part in it, and it was important to Supreme that it was filmed. And sadly, though, she ends up dropping the camera as soon as these guys pulls up. She doesn't want to. She gets scared, and I guess she goes to duck or whatever. So why they held on to the tape, I don't know. That was ridiculous. That you would hold on to a tape that's really, memorializing a homicide in progress, So why Supreme held on to that tape, I'll never know.
Huh.
But the tape really ends right as they pull up. So
it turns off?
It turns off.
Oh, so she doesn't even drop it, it just turns off.
Well, that I don't remember. I think it turns off because I don't remember if I heard gunshots on it or not.
Okay.
So, but I didn't know what I had initially. And my suspicions were it was that. And my partner, Tony Castiglia, he actually got the television shows for the day that were, you could hear it in the background, time stamped to that day, time, right up to the hit. We put it all together. I mean, it was pretty good police work. So, it wasn't that as easy as, it's not quite the home run you think it is coming across the tape like that. You still got to get the photographer to fess up to a certain degree too.
Okay, but she wasn't charged with anything because, she's part of this murder in a way. Not
think
even in a way, she is part of this murder.
Yeah, I think she pled out. I forget what she pled out to, but she was arrested and she pled out.
Okay. And
she was such a disaster. I don't even know what they gave her. I don't,
Okay. And when Supreme had his trial, this actually came up in the trial?
Yes.
And was he convicted of this murder?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the murder of E and the murder of Troy Singleton. And I'm not sure if we added in the murders of K. Ron Claret and his partner from down in Baltimore, but definitely those two for New York.
Okay. And how much time was Supreme ultimately given?
Multiple life sentences, I guess. It was a death penalty RICO case, and the jury voted against the death penalty, but guilty on all the other charges.
Okay. Tell me about Big Nose Troy, because Tony A always brings up his name. There was like 3 big guys in Queens. There was Supreme, Big Nose Troy, and 50 Cent is how he would kind of frame it.
Yeah, so I never met Troy, never pulled him over, never, whatever, only knew him by reputation. Actually knew his family from after we made the arrests of in the Supreme Team case. But yeah, he was another guy. I don't know when he butted heads with Supreme, but he was like other people, like E. He wasn't afraid of him, and he was strong enough and bad enough to, go up against him. So he had to go too. And the Supreme Team, McGriff and his cohorts were using these two-way pagers. I think they initially got them through the guys in murder to communicate with the guys in Murder Inc. records. If not, they might have been part of Def Jam's pagers. And they were like, Troy's over here, Troy's over there. And one night they put it out that he's at the Van Wyck sports bar. And they just wait for him to walk out and pop him, and that's it. He's dead. Sadly, his son, who was probably like 12 years old at the time, read a letter at sentencing to the judge, and it was one of the saddest things you ever saw. A very good-looking, cute little kid with his grandmother and maybe his mom. I don't remember. Again, the typical thing where the family now has to raise the child because, it's the side of this life we don't get to see. And that really, it really made me sad and kind of angry. Like, everyone talks about these gentlemen gangsters, but, you got to see the other side of this stuff too, And, but yeah, so they left these records around, these two-way pager records around. And we were able to put a lot of stuff together with them. So it was really foolish what they did.
I mean, why do you think there's so many murders that were happening during that time? Because, listen, I understand, okay, this person is causing some problems. This person is making money where I should be making money. But once you do murders, you bring a lot of attention. You know what I'm saying? You really put your whole operation in jeopardy. Because most times, you know, because I remember I interviewed mafia guys that were selling crack. Well, not really crack, but cocaine and
Right.
heroin during this time. And they kept things relatively quiet. So when Edward Byrne got killed, they said it didn't really affect their operation. They were under the radar. No one was getting killed. There was no shootouts in the middle of the street. So why do you think that these guys in Queens were so quick to kill people, and which ultimately led to everyone's downfall?
Yeah, I mean, well, it wasn't just Queens for that type of behavior. But yeah, I mean, you're talking so much money, easy money. And then it's someone has the same idea. Well, I want to break away from my crew and start my own crew. And now there's a turf war, you know, all that kind of stuff. And of course, then, you know, there's a lot of drug money out there. Then that brings you guys like Haitian Jack, you know, and his crew who were like, we're going after the drug dealers. They, you know, Jack had said that, you know, he thought he was doing a service for the community by stealing their stuff. So
He really said that?
Yeah.
By killing drug dealers?
Well, taking their stuff.
Oh, taking their stuff.
Yeah, not killing them. But
Got
yeah,
it.
no, so violence comes with it. It's just so lucrative. There's no rules. There's no regulations. And desperate people sell drugs. I've met a lot of people who, I would call it the drug economy, who if they, you know, they cooperated with me, we met on, you know, 50 occasions talking about the case and different things, and had to do favors for their families because they felt uneasy, something might be going wrong. And so I had that whole world that I got to take a look into. And you just see loving families and the kid that decided, you know, I'm just going to do this once. And then it's, wow, I'm making a lot of money. Or, wow, the cops hit my stash. Now I got to make it up. And then you're in the life and you're not getting out until you go to jail. And jail's a part of it. You know, everyone wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit, like go sit in a jail cell for 10 years, you know? So it's a shitty life.
Were there any attempts on your life at any point?
There was, well, on 2 occasions. Once someone called my phone, racked a gun back, and fired a shot off. Another time, we intercepted a call between Supreme and Godby. And Supreme was telling Godby, his real name is Chauncey Milliner. He was there for the shooting of 50 Cent. Supreme was saying, find out everything you can about this cracker. And I still have the tape around somewhere. I listen to it once in a while for shits and giggles. But yeah, I mean, I know cops who had their houses shot up, you know, so I was lucky. I just had someone badmouthing me and somebody trying to scare me. But you know, I never really lost any sleep over it.
Okay, so 50 Cent, he was growing up in this area, and he talked about himself. He started selling crack at a relatively early age and started to build up while these other guys were already established. So did you know 50 Cent at all during that time?
No.
Okay.
No, well, I tell you, the first time I became aware of him was when I went to the 103rd Precinct and they showed me this letter about going after Kenneth McGriff and whatever. This detective, Bob McHugh, said, hey, they're after this kid 50 Cent, and, you know, here's the history of it. And by the way, here's his cassette. And it was back the DJ Who Kid era with How to Rob and all that stuff. And, you know, as a music lover, I thought How to Rob was, you know, it was hysterical. It was a good song. And so that's the first time I even heard of 50 Cent. And yeah, so, and right away I liked him because of the song. I knew nothing about his life or anything else. And
All right, How to Rob came out in 1999.
wow.
Okay.
So I started doing this in 2000, this case. So that would make sense.
A year later.
Yeah.
Okay, so 50 Cent is living out there and he's in the mix. Now, like I mentioned earlier, he drops the song Ghetto Quran. And, I mean, you kind of hear different takes on this. From 50's point of view, he always said that this was an homage to his neighborhood and all the important figures in his neighborhood. To other people, you hear he's exposing all these criminal figures and putting them on a spotlight. Do you remember when Ghetto Quran came out?
I don't remember the first time I heard it. It was probably around that era. But, you know, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world where people say it's like dry snitching or something like that. No, I mean, look, you don't think the cops know the Supreme team? You know, you don't think the cops knew that Prince was the killer and Supreme was the businessman? You know, it's, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting songs like that out as far as staying to the code of the streets. Let's put it that way. So
there's a lot of interesting tidbits throughout this song. I went through and kind of pulled some out. You know, he said, rumors in the hood was that Just was snitching. He's talking about Black Just. He said, I didn't believe that, Pa. He helped me cop my first GSXR. So was Black Just cooperating?
Not that I know of. And you know what? Listen, in law enforcement, you know, the only way you're ever going to become aware if someone is cooperating is if the officer, detective, agent that's controlling them will give you access to them. Usually it's, hey, I got a guy, ask me the questions, I'll find out your answers. But sometimes because it's so involved and you got a big case going, you'll actually get introduced to these guys. And, but yeah, I mean, I've heard about like these rumors and things like that. And I wouldn't tell you if they were true or not, unless the guy was dead. And I never heard that.
Okay, so
I never heard that he was. So,
okay, so later on in the song, he said, "From Gerald Wallace to Baby Wise, don't be surprised of how freely I throw out names of guys who dealt with pies." You know those two guys?
Baby Wise.
Okay, who's Baby Wise?
Baby Wise was a Supreme Team member, cocaine trafficker, did everything Supreme wanted. He was close to Supreme, kind of like protected him. And what was the other name? It was Wise. Wise is Baby Wise. And
Gerald Wallace.
Gerald Wallace?
Gerald Wallace.
Let me get back to you on that one. I don't know if that's right.
And later on in the song, he says, like L.A. Wise, L got shot in the neck, then told his connect. Them N-words who shot them got him for 10 bricks. Fucking Dominicans turned around and gave him more bricks. Then later on it said, Popo under pressure too. They know what they facing. Go against crews like Bebo and killers like Pappy Mason. Who's Bebo?
I don't know. I know the name, but I don't know his government name.
Then he says, I know some cats that held down whole complexes like Corley Wall. Together, N-words stand and divided they fall. Who's Corley Wall?
James Corley is Corley Wall, and they had the 40s projects. It was him and his brother and a guy named Mookie Hatcher, Everett Hatcher. And actually, the way I got involved in this case was I heard that James Corley was wanted by parole and was running from them. My chief told me to see if I can go out and find him. And when I was out looking for leads is how I ended up in the 103rd Precinct. And if I didn't end up going in there, I never would have found out about this letter. And I don't think any of this ever would have. I think Supreme would have gotten arrested for some nonsense, but I don't think he ever would have been convicted of those homicides.
He says, around here, shook N-words, they keep it in motion. Come around here with your rollie, you get robbed like Ocean. No idea. Lord knows Tommy had Laurelton sold. Helicopters, Rolls Royces, Louis Vuitton interior. Might sound like I'm fantasizing, but son, I'm dead serious.
What was the name on it?
Tommy.
Tommy?
Yeah. Then it goes, Montana was no dummy, brought business to wash the money, had money out the ass, he politicked like the Asians, feds could catch him dirty, so settled for tax evasion.
Tony, might have been Tony Furtado.
Oh yeah, right, yeah, we interviewed those guys.
Yeah.
He said, yo, rest in peace, Rich and Ron, money was what they was about, yo. The twins was from Queens, but got crazy cream with Alpo.
What was the last part about Alpo? The last two lines there.
The Twins was from Queens, but got Crazy Cream with Alpo. I think he's talking about
The Furtado brothers might be. I don't know.
Throughout my time, I heard tales of Jaime, Frenchie, Jamaican Paulie, Ducky Corley, Ronnie Bumps, and Chick.
Yeah, Ronnie Bump was old school. There was a rumor that when the cops hit Ronnie Bump's house, there was money in it, and that was the startup for Def Jam Records. That Russell went to get the money out. So, I heard that all the time. And is it street legend or is it true? I don't know. Maybe you can get him on your show. I don't know. Where is he in Singapore? Maybe you could do a live show.
Yeah, that's a friend of mine. I'll bring this up next time. He said, if you watch the news, you see players in this game, they lose. I'm forgetting Lefty and Jazz, Pretty Tony and Lance, Head Luch, Mel Son, Troy, and E-Money Bags.
Wow. Yeah, so you're talking about guys from Brooklyn. He's all over the place with it. But, how does it really affect those guys' lives? Like, do you think there's some old school detective who's sitting there saying, wow, these are good leads for us? You know what I mean? It's like they're too busy to even look it up,
Yeah, and it ends in a conversation over shrimp and lobster at Benihana's. Her Chico stopped boxing and started robbing diners. Shout out to Clarence and Clutch, Bob Dre, Black Will. If the flow don't kill you, the Mac will.
Yeah, he seems to cut, for a young guy, I guess, he knew a lot. His name, 50 Cent, he knew who all the players were. So if I was a bad guy, I'd want you to pay homage to me, know? I don't.
50 Cent drops Ghetto Quran. Then at one point, 50 Cent and Ja Rule get into it. Now, from what I understand, and I've talked to a few people about this, one of 50 Cent's people ends up robbing Ja Rule for a watch. And 50 kind of got thrown into that situation because of his affiliation with it.
Right.
So a fist fight happens. And, depending on who you talk to, you get a slightly different story. Allegedly 50 punched Ja, but then Ja said he punched 50. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But there was some sort of altercation and things started getting bad. And at the time, Ja Rule was the big rapper out of Queens.
Okay.
So did you know about this beef between 50 Cent and Ja Rule?
Yeah, I became aware of it when I started. And it was a big part of the case because, for a variety of reasons, namely that 50 got shot by, since Supreme had insinuated himself into Murder Inc. Records, into being their protector. So, yeah, there was another thing too where I heard it was a chain at one time. Maybe that was in Atlanta or something.
It was a watch. Yeah.
Okay. I know Supreme got a chain back one time, I think, for him.
Maybe it was a chain. Yeah, the story's a bit fuzzy.
I think 50 lost a watch in one of those fights or something too. There was something weird. Like I think that's where the watch.
Ja lost the watch and 50 got the watch back in exchange for a chain or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No. Maybe it's the other way. No. Yeah, I think Ja's chain got taken and 50 got it back in exchange for a watch. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So what takes that from that level of 50, I guess, is jealous of Ja Rule, right? He's talking down to him. He's, whatever. You might take it as jealousy. You might take it as competition.
Yeah.
It gets violent where people, throwing, fists at each other. How it gets to the level where McGriff goes out searching for 50 all over the place trying to kill him how does it go from there to there is amazing. So I don't know what might have happened in between 50 and McGriff, but obviously 50 is a target. He knows he's a target. If you look at the two-way pager records that we found, historical records, you'll see unknown people saying 50's on Guy Brewer and 155th or wherever. So they were out looking for him. And so Kenneth McGriff, Chauncey Milliner, whose street name was Godby, Rob Lyons, whose street name was Son or Rob Love. They go to 50's grandmother's house and wait for 50, and the rest is history. They shoot him up, and they flee. They take the car to Brooklyn. They give the car to an associate of the Supreme team and tell him to hide it. And years later, we actually found that car too. He hid it by parking it in a parking garage, and then the city marshals took it for unpaid whatever, and we actually found the car had traps in it and everything else. And so 50 miraculously survives that, and that story is corroborated. So,
okay, so number one, there was always these rumors that Supreme was actually 50's real father and stuff like that. No truth in that. Okay, I didn't think so, but.
You know, one thing I heard is that 50 was tight with a drug dealer from Long Island. And
okay.
I forget the guy's name, and it always bothered McGriff. I don't know if that's true or not. And then he kind of, when McGriff would come around the hood, he wouldn't suck up to him. He would just kind of like, whatever he would, and I think it left a bad taste in McGriff's mouth, and once the stuff with Josh started, whatever. But there has to be more to it, to go from fighting in the street to setting up the guy to kill him. I mean, so how many more incidents were there? Did McGriff tell him to knock it off and he told him to go fuck himself? I don't know. But to murder a guy, to try to murder a guy over stuff like that is just insane, stupid,
What about 50's mother? Because she was in the streets as well and she got killed. Was she working for Supreme at one point?
I used to know the story. I don't think it was Supreme. I think it might have been like Cat or one of those guys. Huh. I don't think it was Supreme.
Okay.
The area doesn't make sense for it to be Supreme, but who knows? I don't even know if 50 really would know. You know what I mean? He's got to be just a little kid, right? I mean,
right. So the murder of 50's mother is still an unsolved case.
Yeah, I had asked around about it, but I had other things going. But I'd love to see the folder and see what's in it.
So 50's in front of his grandmother's house, and Supreme is around, as well as two other guys.
Yeah, they staked the place out.
Yeah. Son and Godby. So Son comes up to the car and opens fire.
Right.
Now, as it's happening, they say that 50 thought it was Hamo.
Right.
Hamo was Mike Tyson's guy.
Yeah, Darryl Baum. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Tyson's bodyguard at one point, right?
Yeah. Well,
bodyguard, friend, whatever.
Yeah. Street,
okay.
Real tough guy, but not a killer. Not a shooter.
Okay. Why do you think 50 Cent thought it was Hamo?
I think he said to the guy next to him, that looked like Hamo. That looked like Hamo. Was that Hamo or something like that? I think that's how that got out.
Who was the guy that was in the car at 50?
I forget his name. I went to go speak with him in prison, upstate New York, and he wasn't no part of it, So, yeah, I've been actually looking through my old reports and I couldn't find it. But he was scared, like he didn't want anything to do with it. And so we never got anywhere that way. And in the beginning of the investigation, I thought it was Hamo. 50 said it was him and everything else. And then when we started to get cooperators in the case, we found out differently.
Well, yeah, like in 50's Many Men, he said, in the Bible it says what goes around comes around. Hamo shot me. 3 weeks later, he got shot down. Now it's clear that I'm here for a real reason, because he got hit like I got hit, but he ain't fucking breathing. So in one of 50's big songs, he names Hamo as the shooter, and talks about how 3 weeks later Hamo gets killed.
Right.
So 3 weeks later, Hamo does get killed.
Yeah, he gets killed by Damian Hardy and his crew.
World,
yeah.
okay. Why did Hamo get killed?
When Damian Hardy was in prison, his brother Myron got killed by a kid named Peanut. Peanut was a part of a crew of guys that were associated with Darryl Baum. So you had like Peanut, J.R. Hamilton. Who else was in that crew? I think they were associated with Scooter and those guys even at one point. But they all kind of did stuff together and were tight. And so Damian Hardy was a psychopath. When he came out, he wanted everyone gone. And anyone he thought was responsible for his brother's death or associated with them, he was taking him out. So he was also, let's see, what was his name? Darryl Baum's brother, T-Rock. I think his first name was Tyrone. He was extorting from guys who were doing at construction sites. He'd come and say, if you don't hire my guys or if you don't kick back, we're going to disrupt your business. And he was killed also in that whole little war that lasted a very short amount of time. But had nothing to do with 50. The retaliation was a whole different set of, ghetto drama and craziness. And guys like World were kind of similar to Prince. Senseless violence, no reason. You could settle it different ways. You have a strong crew. People are afraid of you. They're gonna step back and let you do what you got to do. But I could see avenging your brother's death, but all the other stuff was just, ridiculous. So.
Okay, so 50 gets shot 9 times by Son. He survives.
Yes.
He goes, he goes to hang out with Sean Money XL, who's has a place way out, and they start working on music as he's healing up. But Robert Lyons, aka Son, who's the shooter,
mm-hmm.
you said became Ja Rule's bodyguard.
Yes.
Did Ja Rule and them already know him, or was it because of the shooting that they kind of brought him in?
Yeah, so the weird thing about Rob Lyons is when I first got his name, he didn't have an arrest record. He had a record with the FBI, but nothing that would come back on a rap sheet. I don't know if he got his case, dismissed somehow or another, and at any rate, he was a mystery to us, and the only thing I could find was his driver's license, and he didn't look anything like homicide, so I didn't know what to make of it initially. But he was driving around in a Hummer. He lived in the pink houses in Brooklyn. Later on, he was driving around in a Mercedes-Benz. I took the tag off the Benz, and it comes back to Jeffrey Atkins, Ja Rule. And then any kind of surveillance that we conducted, he's right behind Ja Rule. He's his de facto bodyguard, no doubt. But he seems to be a guy who's got Brooklyn ties. He had ties to Scooter. He had ties to World. And he seemed to have been hustling, but nobody really knew him. It was like one of those guys who laid really low and didn't have a real street name, street creds. So, but yeah, he went from nobody to killer to bodyguard in quick fashion.
Okay, but he didn't actually kill 50.
Well, shooter, I should say. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Whatever happened to Son? Is he still alive?
Last I heard, he's out here somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those guys had a good ride, but that Irv Gotti destroyed that company. And he was a talented guy. He was riding high, and how culpable he is in the shooting of 50 Cent, I don't know. I don't know what people think, but it's funny that the shooter that McGriff takes to get 50 is promoted to Ja Rule's bodyguard.
Well, 50 gets shot, but he doesn't cooperate.
No. I chased after him forever, and I couldn't get him to cooperate. I went through lawyers. I went through Jimmy Iovine. I went through his legitimate police bodyguards, everybody. I knew his attorney, Bob Colina, and Bob set up, I could talk to 50, and basically he said, no dice. He goes, thank you, but no, not my thing.
I recently interviewed Tony Yayo, and we were talking about the whole snitching thing. He said some pretty gruesome stuff. He said that he knew of people in his neighborhood who snitched, and they would get tied up. They would put peanut butter all over their legs and let the rats just basically start chewing on their legs. Other snitches, they would actually make shit sandwiches and force them to eat the actual shit sandwich. Have you ever heard of stories like this?
No.
Were snitches getting killed during this time?
There's what?
Were snitches actually getting killed, though, during this time?
Used to hear guys get marked, slashed in the face, different things like that. I don't know many guys that lost an informant to being a snitch. It seems to be something that was like in a lot of movies in the 80s, police movies, the snitch gets killed. But I never knew it happened to anybody. And most snitches they're not supposed to be, but they're actively involved in criminal behavior and activity. So that's usually how they end up going, if not go to jail.
About a year after 50 Cent gets shot, he's in the studio, and Ja Rule and Irv Gotti, Black Child, possibly some other people, they run into him, and this big altercation happens. 50 gets cut, like in the arm or something like that. And essentially everything, everyone walks away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, when I interviewed Tony Yayo for the first time, when I said, 50 Cent got stabbed, he's like, shut the fuck up, Vlad. You got a little scratch.
They had like motherfucking crutches and shit.
50 got stabbed that day, right? He did get stabbed,
Vlad,
right?
shut the fuck up with that shit.
Okay. He got
the
cut?
Motherfucker had a scratch.
He got cut a little.
You want to see what I got? You look on my finger right here. If you look on my finger, I got cut right there. Just look bad because it was sliced and meat was hanging. No homo.
That was from that night?
So look, that was from that night. And this right here, on the knuckle right there, 50 had a scratch.
And there was always the kind of the story of 50 Cent having an order of protection after that incident.
Right.
But you said that's not actually true.
No, none of them cooperated. I looked into the incident, and I wanted to make it one of the violent acts that had happened during the time period and see if we could, put it as part of a bigger case. And, those guys weren't cooperating. The one victim who was like the engineer in the studio, he's the one who wanted arrests made. He wanted to sue, and I think he did. And so when he went to the DA's office, they automatically attached like an order of protection against anybody involved who was a victim. And that's how that happened. And it's not like 50 Cent asked for an order of protection from, Chris Gotti or somebody. But if, and the Gottis have always thrown that out there, and it's all bullshit. And it's just Irv being Irv.
Okay. But even with all these incidents, 50 Cent ends up putting out more music, originally through mixtapes, right around 2002. Starts to get really hot.
Right.
Signs a deal with Shady Aftermath. Drops his debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying, and it becomes the biggest thing in music.
Well, before that, just to let you know, I talked to guys like Craig Kalman. Irv Gotti told him, if you sign 50, you're done. They did the same thing to Tommy Mottola.
Tommy over J-Lo, I think. I think 50 was supposed to get on a song with J-Lo, And I heard that Irv Gotti...
They made them switch it out or something.
Yeah, Irv Gotti said, like, yo, don't put 50 on the song. He might hurt her or something like that. So they ended up switching him out, yeah.
But there was also, though, a deal in the making to start an MI2, Murder Inc. 2, at Sony. And there were threats made. Tommy Mottola was so scared that he was friends with Janine Pirro, the Westchester DA at the time, who's now a big spokesperson at Fox News and all. And she had her district attorney investigators actually look into the case because he was in fear that the guys were going to come to the house. And they had the whole story, the Scream Team, Irv Gotti, and everything else. And we confronted him at Tommy Mottola at the at Sony Music. And in his company, he had former police commissioner Howard Safer, a retired former head of New York office for ATF. And we ended up getting into a brawl in the office. They were denying that they ever made any outreach. And then we exposed the fact that Janine Pirro's investigators and a retired U.S. Marshal that worked for Mottola actually visited the U.S. Attorney's Office with their fears and that we should start a case against Murder Inc. Records. So it ended poorly. I mean, bad. Like, if it could have went to fisticuffs. It was the tension of, it was myself, a U.S. Attorney, Carolyn Picorni, and a task force officer from DEA Long Island, Fidel Balan. And we walked out of there like we were shocked that we'd be treated so poorly. And also, I don't know, you might want to look into this incident. Right around this time, Irv Gotti, Michael Jackson, and the Reverend Al Sharpton hold a rally in public calling Tommy Mottola a racist and demand that he give back, Michael Jackson's publishing on something and everything else.
I remember that, yeah.
So think about Irv Gotti doing all these things. He's somewhat involved in the shooting of 50 Cent by his association with Supreme. He's threatening Craig Kellman, Tommy Mottola, and who else?
Well, hold on. Saying I'm not going to do business with you if you do business with this guy is not really threatening. This is business. He's not saying I'm going to hurt you if you do this. You could say that. You could say, hey, listen, if you work with this guy, I won't work with you. That's totally legal.
Yeah, okay. But where I'm from, it's a threat. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
right. Fair enough.
Do this and we'll destroy your career too. Do this and we'll make sure nobody gives you business or whatever. Anyway, why? Why bother? You know what I mean? So this is this continuing effort to keep 50 down and, what is Irv Gotti doing with Reverend Al and Michael Jackson? And I know at one point Irv Gotti went out to Neverland or something. I don't know what was going on. I think they had a possible collaboration going at some point. But it was just like a bizarre set of things going on that I thought were really, it was short-sighted on Irv's part that he was riding so high and he was going to ride high forever. And he made a lot of enemies,
Get Rich or Die Trying comes out. It becomes massive.
Yeah.
Goes platinum, huge songs. 50 Cent becomes a superstar.
Yeah.
And he's now touring around promoting the album. And right around 2003, an informant tells you that there's a hit out on 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Who put the hit out?
That's a good question. It wasn't said. It was never said who exactly wanted the hit done, but it would have been coming through McGriff. One of the names mentioned was this guy Tyran Moore. He was a member of the Supreme Team. I don't know if that's true or not, but he apparently, it was said that he turned it down. And person I know said that it's out there, and I was mentioned in it as a possible candidate to do it, and I just want you to know I don't want any part of this, whatever.
How much money was on 50's head?
I don't remember. I want to say it was something like $50,000 or something silly like that. Now, it doesn't mean it was true. You know what I mean? But it seemed a possibility to us based on the information we had. So we all went out to the House of Blues. It was myself, one of my sergeants, and a team that we worked with for the LA Sheriffs, their Major Crimes Bureau. We did all our stuff with them. Detective Mark Gaiman from Major Crimes there. We did all the Haitian Jack stuff together. We go there, and the security for 50 Cent has this elaborate security plan. They like land in some airport in Santa Monica. They motorcaded up to House of Blues, and we're all up and hanging out in the foundation room in the upper level up there watching the show. And, you know, it was, it was like history. That was hip hop history right there that night, you know? Yeah, then they got whisked out of there, right back to the airport on the jets, and they were out of town. But what was funny is right after the show, I'm taking a leak, and who comes into the men's room next to me but Haitian Jack. And he's like, Billy Courtney, how you doing? He's laughing, he's nudging me with his shoulder. And I'm like, fucking like, I don't even know what to say. So walk out of the bathroom, we're walking around, we're talking to some of the members of law enforcement are there. We're all drinking in the foundation room, essentially. And I come back out and I see Haitian Jack talking to Chris Lighty and James Cruz. And they turn and look at me like, holy shit, like they didn't know what to do. And Jack's looking, and Jack doesn't seem to care because, you know, whatever. But, you know, that was what I think was like the last of the extortion days, you know, of guys like Jack feeling free to come up to people and all, like big money tour, a lot of record company money behind it, a lot of lavish stuff going on, parties and all that. That was like the end of that era of big, you know, corporate money involved in music, and guys like Jack, and the way hip hop had basically run for, I don't know, 10, 20 years at that point, you know. It all seemed to be, that seemed to be the end of an era that night, you know.
Well, you talked about how at one point, Tony Yayo, who was, he had a curfew because he went to jail, came out, used his brother's passport to travel, gets caught, goes back to jail,
right,
gets out. And I guess a bunch of NYPD guys wanted to bust him by catching him after curfew.
Yeah, so what happens is because of the Supreme Team case, they wanted to start the hip hop kind of police unit. They didn't say that was their intentions, but it's what happened. And because I was a case guy, I didn't have to get involved in that nonsense. And but I would speak to the guys who were out doing surveillances and everything else, and I'd ask them to, hey, do me a favor, look for this car or do whatever. And we get a new boss in, and he wants to know why I don't go out and play with everybody else. And he tells me, I need to call parole and find out what's going on with this guy, Yayo, and whatever. So I report back, yeah, he's got a curfew. He goes, all right, good, go out. I want you to go to Nassau Coliseum tonight and cover the concert. Now, I used to go to all the concerts anyway because I used to like going to the concerts, and I used to like to see who the entourage members were because there was always a bad guy amongst them, you know. And so I go out with my partner. I'm like, I'm not following this kid around all night long, you know, everything else. So we set up in the back of Nassau Coliseum, ready for when the show is over. And they were like in a minivan or an SUV, I forget. And we get onto the Nassau Expressway, and I got a smoked out Honda Prelude, seized car. I throw the red bubble on top, pull them over, and you couldn't see me for anything. It's like pitch black out. And they open the door, put the window down, and I see Yayo in there. I go, listen, you know, you're going to get violated. You got to go home tonight. And if you don't go, that's it. You're done. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't know if they thought they were going to get shot or they were going to shoot me, but I put the word out. So later on, I was like, you know, what if this fucking guy gets in trouble tonight? You know, so let's go back and see if he's at his house. And it was somewhere out in Union Turnpike in Queens. And sure enough, we see him in the drive-through at a White Castle. And I roll my window down, and I'm looking out at him, and he's at the bend in the drive-thru, and he's giving me that Tony Yayo look. You know, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy is fucking looking at me like that? Motherfucker, you know? And then later on, watching your videos, and Yayo's got that deadpan face. And I said, well, that's the same face. So I don't know if he remembers it or not, but that was, I didn't want any part of that business. That was like stupid. That's what the rap police turned into. There's a lot of people who claim they were the rap police and they weren't. A lot of fools out there. And it's certainly nothing that I wanted to be associated with. But inevitably, you know, we get stuck following the game around and guys like that. And it was just, you know, moronic.
Well, I interviewed Derek Parker, who was part of the hip hop police. You just rolled your eyes.
Derek Parker, I think actually created this little hip hop kingdom for himself at one point, but he ended up getting thrown out. Two rumors. One, he gave Diddy a cell phone when he was in a cell on the night of the shooting in that club New York or whatever it was.
Yeah, when Shine was involved in that shooting. Yeah.
And the second one was that, you know, he's supposed to be investigating, you know, guys like Wolf and everything else, and he was running Diddy's security detail out in Vegas at some event. And he ended up getting tossed out, and I don't know how they found out or what happened. So I had only heard of him. Someone told me that he also fashioned himself to be like a singer early in his career and was giving Diddy tapes and trying to. So out of those three things, which ones are true, which aren't, I don't know. But I do know he got unseated and tossed out. So I watch him on interviews from time to time, and he just says shit that he wasn't even there for. He was on a podcast about the Murder Inc. Records Supreme Team case. So I was like, the guy was like retired when that thing, you know. So I just get a kick out of how everybody, when they want to do an interview on the hip hop police, they call him up and he's, you know, whatever, you know.
Well, yeah,
So
I mean, Yayo's a regular on my show, and I mean, he clearly says that the hip hop police would harass the hell out of him and all his guys, pull him over, rough them up.
I think they're mistaken in that they also, the gang unit in the NYPD was out fucking them. And you know what I mean? They didn't know who was who.
Right.
And I think they locked up 50 at one point for a gun in a car and all that. It was probably the gang unit because, you know, our thing was to try to get out there. Well, their thing was to try to get out and prevent stuff from happening, to get intel, what was going on, and not, you know, not lock them up per se. Whereas the gang unit just wanted to get him. They knew that, you know, and I didn't know a lot about 50's, you know, entourage. And, you know, you knew there's some bad guys in there. So, I mean.
One of the songs that 50 did around the time of the first album was Magic Stick.
Which one?
Magic Stick.
Yeah.
Magic Stick was a Lil' Kim song featuring 50 Cent. But 50's all over the chorus and everything else like that. Ends up being the biggest song of that time for Kim.
Right.
He does the song, but he wouldn't do the music video.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense because at the time he's on Interscope Shady Aftermath and they don't want to, you know, allow him to jump on other people's songs and dilute, you know, everyone buying his album.
Mm-hmm.
So Lil' Kim felt some type of way about that. She was upset that he wouldn't do the video. And I remember they were at Hot 97 and they were all freestyling. And 50 Cent basically disses Lil' Kim, you know, says, you know, I gave Kim a hit and then she got into her feelings and shit. You know, why do I care about her feelings? She's not my bitch. Right after that, they left. They went to Jersey and then they got shot at.
Yes.
And the shooter was Damian Hardy, a.k.a. World, who we talked about previously.
Yeah.
You also said Benzino was there?
That's what I was told.
Okay.
Yeah, so World, the rumor was that they actually got married at one point, him and Kim.
Okay,
At least they was,
yeah, because that was her boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I heard at one point, like, he actually pushed her out of her, like, they were having a fight and he actually pushed her out of a limo that was rolling. It was like, you know, going like 2 or 3 miles an hour. So, I think
like her nose got broken at one point. That's why they, you know, I guess she like kind of said the plastic surgery was because her boyfriend broke her nose and she had to get her nose done. So that, I don't know if that's the same instance, but
yeah,
talk about someone's pushing someone out of a limo, that kind of on brand for something like that.
Yeah. So World was managing her, extorting from her, whatever he was doing. And he wanted the video done. As I heard the same thing. And I ended up getting his phone number, World's phone number. And you could see it starts in like Bed-Stuy area when 50 and them are doing their interview. And then they're rolling and they get to Hot 97. And then they followed them, like you follow the phone from Hot 97 out to a hotel in Jersey City where this shootout takes place. And they wouldn't cooperate on that one, 50 and his crew. And then they shot up Violator too, not too long after that. They drove. Violator Records was like on 25th Street. Jimmy Henchman had his place there too.
Across the street.
Yeah. And then you had one of those shoot 'em up clubs down the block. I think it used to be Jay-Z's old club, one of those clubs.
4040?
Was that it? It was on 25th and whatever. Possibly. So between the three locations, it was like a nightmare. Like they were always having problems over there.
Okay, so World shot at 50 Cent and G-Unit. Yeah. Nobody got hit though?
No.
Okay. 50 Cent didn't cooperate?
No.
How do you know it was World?
Well, I had sources. I got a call about it that night. I got his phone number the next day, World's phone number, and the rest was history.
So you triangulated his position to where he was. Yeah.
You know, I ended up having sources inside of Interscope Records too. I'm sorry, and Jimmy Iovine's circle and all that. So they would tell people who would tell people who would tell people, and I would get a lot of stuff through the rumor mill through them too. But never would anybody in the entourage, or guys like James Cruz, Chris Lighty, they would never cooperate. And I always thought that was ridiculous because Chris Lighty had a lot to lose. You know, they made threats to his family, they threatened to kidnap his wife, and he still wouldn't cooperate. I went out and met with him at his house out in Jersey. He had a beautiful house out in the Oranges somewhere, and he wouldn't cooperate.
Right in the middle of the beef, you had mentioned that Violator Records, their door got shot up.
Yeah. And
you're saying that was World who did it?
Yeah. There was two separate beefs going on. There was the Jimmy beef and the Jimmy Henchman beef and the World beef.
Right. The Jimmy Henchman beef was because Jimmy was managing Game, and Game had the whole falling out.
Right.
With 50 when 50 kicked him out of G-Unit.
Right.
Did you investigate the shooting in front of Hot 97?
I passed on my... I knew that there was a case against World. So I just I gave my findings to the task force that was looking into him. Essentially what happened was there was Homeland Security had a drug case going against World. Two members of his crew were cooperating. And so everything was going, down. And right after that period of time, World began to realize that his days were numbered. And he actually went over to, he became a Muslim in jail, or, when it suited him. And he ended up going over to fight jihad in Iraq.
Wait. I've never heard about this before. He went to Iraq
to fight?
To fight on whose side?
Well, not our side.
Right. So he fought on the Iraqi side against America?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, true story. So
for how long?
I don't know. So we reached out to the Israelis, and we had his name on a border crossing just in case, because Jordan was a big hop-off point for it. And sure enough, he tried to cross into Israel, and they turned him back, and they called us. And I go, well, why don't you just hold on to him? We'll come out and talk to him. And they're like, well, we don't want him in fucking Israel. So then he showed up on a manifest of a plane coming in, and I think they grabbed him as soon as he landed, or shortly thereafter. But that was the end of them and that crew. But yeah, no, he was playing crazy. He'd been shot in the head at one point, And, I don't think he was wrapped too tight to begin with, but I think that had an effect on, what type of horrible human being he turned into. And, I think all these things he was doing, though, was to show he was crazy, and he actually had everyone fooled that he was incapacitated and was unable to stand trial, and he almost pulled it off. And at one point, though, he's on a jail phone call and he lets his guard down and tells everyone, "I can't believe they're falling for this shit," kind of thing. And that was the end of that. He went to trial, and the rest is history. He's done. But he was a maniac. Like, he was another guy that, you're committing so many acts of violence. How long do you think you're going to stay out on the street? So, but I think he was the deadliest of all the threats against 50. He was the worst one. He's not the guy you want against you. And he had a super tight crew of killers. And one of them was actually on the hits that Supreme had ordered, a guy named eBay.
Okay, and you actually said that World was worse than Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he's a killer. You know what I mean? I mean, Jimmy would be more of a killer than Haitian Jack would be. Jimmy would be more of the two that would be, likely to order a hit or something like that. And I can't name a particular incident. But, they were bad guys. They were doing contract hits. They were, went on a killing spree to get rid of all their competition. You don't want to do a video, we'll shoot at you at a hotel. You know what I mean? They were bad guys,
Well, at one point during that beef, Jimmy Henchman's son gets smacked up.
Yeah.
Tony Ayo was there, as well as another guy affiliated with G-Unit. What was his name?
The guy who got killed later on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't take part in...
Lodi Mack.
Yes.
Lodi Mack was the one that smacked up Jimmy's son, who was, I think, maybe 12 years old at the time, 13 years old. And then Lodi Mack gets killed.
Right.
And Jimmy Henchman gets tied into the killing, and now he's doing triple life.
At one point, I got a tip that the DEA was actually monitoring FedEx boxes that were coming from L.A. with Interscope Records bill of ladings with them. They were filled with cocaine, and they would send them to hotels, and then the person staying at the hotel would get the package there, or they would intercept the packages at the facility, and once they knew it got there, and the name on them was Kesner Rosemond, who apparently was Jimmy's brother. So I passed that on to the Jimmy Henchman task force that was looking into the homicide and everything else, but I didn't really take an active lead. Jimmy, at one point, I found out that Jimmy had an open gun case down in Virginia or Carolinas. I think it was Virginia. And so I called the agent and I said, "Hey, listen, this guy's like a fucking problem. And could you trigger lock him?" which is a federal gun charge. And I got the, we'll get back to you. I asked an ATF agent in New York to reach out, and he told me, he goes, "Yeah, I think this guy's cooperating because there's something not right about this, that they won't do this or they won't get back to us." So that was my first inkling that I got, that I thought Jimmy was, playing both sides. So
you also said the World was going after Foxy Brown.
Yeah, I got a call that there was a problem, and I think I knew why it started, but World was taking his ire out on Foxy's brother, Gavin Marchand.
Right. Well, I mean, keep in mind, Foxy Brown and Lil' Kim have been beefing forever, yes. And World is,
right,
dating or possibly
yes.
married to Lil' Kim.
Yes. So Gavin is worried. He borrowed money from DJ, I forget, trying to remember which one. Anyway, he flees to Atlanta, and he hooks up with guys from the BMF. Also, at the same time, Fabulous is having trouble. He's down hanging out with those guys too. So I can't say that that's why, but that's the way I took it. That a lot of people were fleeing New York and heading down to Atlanta and to Miami and kind of hanging with BMF guys, figuring maybe they'll get a little protection. But also, we're trying to remember, Gavin was tight with a guy named Roy Williams. And Roy was with the BMF. He was the New York representative from the BMF. So it would make sense that that was the connection, you know.
Well, you were actually involved in the BMF task force.
Yes. We didn't have a hell of a lot to do in New York other than Jacob the jeweler. But I identified some guys. Meech was they would throw these parties. They'd go to like Lobby and Club Exit, Sue's Rendezvous. He had a bodyguard named Hamza Hewitt, and they got pulled over one night and they had like a 45 in the car, and I think Hamza took responsibility for it, and they cut Meech loose. That was the only arrest I knew we took in New York. And then they would always go to the Royal Riga Hotel and get the presidential suite. And they would stage their cars out in front, and I would sit there and try to see who was coming and going, take license plate numbers down. This guy, Roy Williams, was hooked up with him to the point where I knew he had a BMF chain, so I knew he was down with them. And I think he was more of a hustler and a scammer. Definitely was moving, I shouldn't say definitely, I heard he was moving drugs. And I think he got shot in a diner robbery one night, and actually these 14-year-old kids shot like 9 people in the diner, and I heard they might have snatched that chain during that robbery. I don't know if he ever got it back. But BMF was around throwing parties, flaunting their wealth. One night I followed them. I was by myself, and I followed them up to Mount Vernon to this black strip club called Sue's Rendezvous.
Yep.
And a buddy of mine finally catches up to me. He jumps in my car and he's like, "What do you want to do? You want to call guys out and we'll follow them around?" I was like, "Nah." He says, "They're out partying." I says, I really want to go in. I want to take a leak and I wouldn't mind, whatever. He goes, "Don't go in there." I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to go in." So I went in. I showed the guy my actual NYPD badge and said, "Hey, I just want to have a couple of drinks. I just got off work and I'll get out of here." And the guy's just like, "Nah, go ahead, whatever." Now, I don't know if they shut the place down for him or whatever, but I went in there. It was like a nut house, like they had bottles everywhere, the usual kind of nonsense. And I was there I was maybe like 2 drinks in, 3 drinks in or something like that. And I just started seeing people like give me that look. I was like, all right, it's time to go, So, but those guys had a good run, man,
I mean, yeah, I actually partied with them. They had basically gotten a bunch of New York DJs that they liked to basically hang out with them because they were trying to push their label. Blue Da Vinci was the artist at the time.
Right.
And I got to hang out with them, drink, smoke with them. But I was looking around and I said, this is insane. I was literally at Big Meech's house. This was right after Wolf got killed. He had the ankle monitor on. People were wearing Free Meech shirts.
Right,
I briefly got to meet Meech. And they were very, inviting. They didn't know who I was. I was a DJ, and they liked some of my mixtapes. But I'm looking around, and it's like Lamborghini, Ferrari, Rolls Royce, Benz, BMW, dozens of them. Everyone had huge chains on. People were handing out Cristal bottles like they were flyers.
Right.
And then I saw the billboards. The world is BMF. And I'm looking around going, listen, this is a lot of fun, and I'm really broke right now, but this is all going to come crashing down horribly. Because it's clear that this is all drug money. And I know nothing.
Right.
So if I know nothing and it's clear to me that this is all drug money, the feds and the police must really be honed in on this.
Oh, yeah.
So I hung out with them and I backed away. I maybe ran into them 1 or 2 other times, but I always kept my distance because I didn't want to be part of the bust that I knew was going to be coming. And sure enough, it came and everybody got busted. And I've interviewed a bunch of the BMF guys over the years, like J-Bo and stuff like that. And it was an ugly situation.
Yeah. I heard they flew a helicopter over a party. They threw
Yes.
outdoors and
They
dropped
threw-
cash out.
Yeah, threw money out.
I think they had a piece of that club in Miami, Crowbar. Do you remember
Possibly.
that place?
Yep.
And yeah, look, again, it's this. You know it's going to come crashing down. I think it was like, hey, we're all going to go to jail for hustling sooner or later. Let's live it.
Let's live it up.
Yeah, I kind of get it.
Yeah, and you talked about after Wolf got killed, there was another bodyguard named Big Roy who complained about Diddy continuing to hang out with BMF. And you're right. I remember once Big Meech got off house arrest,
Right.
Puffy threw a big party for him, and Wolf was his right-hand man at one point.
From childhood almost.
Yeah, and it was like everyone looked at that kind of crazy, like, yo, these guys killed your guy, and now you're throwing parties for him.
Yeah, Puffy's he's not a good dude. What's funny is I got a call from Suge Knight's parole officer or something, that he was coming to town to get masters from a studio, and he's down on like 2nd Avenue and like 8th Street, 6th Street or something like that. And he's going to be staying at this hotel on 55th, 56th Street. Have at it. So me and my partner set up there, and Sony Music is like a block or two away. And so all of a sudden, here comes Puffy walking down the street, right past this hotel. Puffy's got like 2 people with him, and they're walking fast, whatever. 2 minutes later, Suge comes out the door. I was like, dude, could you imagine if we just could have had those 2 minutes fucking in time brought back? What would have happened?
They've run into each other before.
Did they really?
Yeah, Roger Bonds, who was Diddy's security for outside of New York, talked about 2 different instances where Puffy actually confronted Suge and was like, what's the problem? Just know that I'm here right now. And at one point, Puffy, in the Cassie lawsuit, they're saying that when Suge was there kind of confronting some of Puffy's people, Puffy grabbed a bunch of guns and went to go confront Suge, and it was fairly crazy.
Yeah.
You talked about how Diddy would rip off Miami nightclub owners.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine in particular, he would tell him like, Diddy's thing is that me coming here is going to attract the press, attention. You're going to get more business. So I'm not picking up the bar tab. And this guy said to him, well, do me a favor, take care of my people then, whatever kind of thing. And his businesses were supported by proceeds of organized crime. So he didn't really, it wasn't killing him. But that was a thing that, who he thought he was, and with all the money he had, you couldn't pick up a bar tab, for crying out loud,
Yeah, you said he had the reputation of screwing everybody over. He's never taken responsibility for anything that he's done that went wrong.
Yeah,
Everybody who knew him knew that he was not a good guy.
Yeah, we went to the same high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a few years apart.
Funny. You're older than him.
Yeah.
Yeah. You interviewed the detectives who investigated the nightclub shooting that Diddy and Shine were involved in?
Yeah.
Okay, because this is sort of a fuzzy story where the woman who got shot recently said that it wasn't Shine who did the shooting, it was actually Diddy.
Yes.
Is there any truth in that?
Well, I had them on my show, the detectives, and yeah, it's what they always thought,
So they said that Diddy was the shooter, not Shine?
Yeah. I think Shine fires indiscriminately somewhere. There's a couple of things that happened. A security guard there fell on Diddy and didn't feel a gun. They brought out all sorts of bizarre stuff at trial. And that's my understanding. I'll send you, I'll get the excerpts of it from the show we did, and I'll send it to you.
Okay, so Diddy was the one that shot the woman in the face.
I believe that's it. I believe, I'll get it for you. It's, he definitely fired a gun.
Huh. Well, he had a gun, because I remember the story was after it happened, everyone ran out. Diddy and J-Lo jumps in their car, and Diddy has the gun on him, and he tries to bribe the driver.
He throws it out and it lands on a guy's car. And then they get pulled over the next precinct up, the Midtown North precinct. They're brought into the precinct. Now, that's where I heard that Parker might have passed the phone in when they were at that police station. And
Because Derek Parker, in my interview, said that he drove J-Lo and Puffy to the precinct after the shooting.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah, so he probably drove him from the one precinct there. So anyway, that was an allegation a detective had told me. But yeah, so this guy's sitting in his car, and a gun lands on his roof or whatever, and they don't put it together though for like a day or so, because I guess the way the guy reported, he reported in a different precinct. Whatever happens, but they put it together. They tried to bribe that guy. This female security guard got bribed, and she said, "Oh, I fell on him right after the shooting, and I didn't feel a gun against him." I mean, come on, people changed their stories. There was a lot going on with that case. He should have been held accountable for what went on in that club.
Right, because I remember when the police
started the whole thing.
Well, did he start it, or because I had heard that a bunch of guys were basically confronted Diddy and Shine and said something effective. Yeah, we got money too, and they threw a bunch of money at him or something like that.
Diddy bumps into one of the guys.
Okay.
Doesn't say he's sorry. He's not apologetic, and from there it escalates.
It was over a bump.
Yes.
A shooting over a bump. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. 'Cause I remember hearing how when the police finally pulled Diddy's car over with J-Lo get out of the car. It's like, I don't know anything about this gun or something. Like, she basically was like, there's a gun and it's not mine. I don't want anything to be part of it. And of course, afterwards, she broke up with him, and that was the end of that.
Yeah. She keeps breaking all these guys' hearts, huh?
I guess so.
And she's from my neighborhood.
Oh, you're from Jenny's block, huh?
Yes.
So Shine went to prison for something he shot a gun, I guess, but he didn't actually shoot anybody. So you're saying that if this trial went the way things actually happened, Shine would have potentially not done the prison time that he did?
Well, I think they all would have done time for possession, everything else. But he kind of took the brunt of it. I'll send you the clip. You can throw it in. It was these guys put their hearts and souls into that case, only to have it lose control of all their witnesses through intimidation and offers of money and everything else, and and then you can't really prove it, so it was kind of devastating to them. But
Gene Deal, who I've interviewed before. Now, when I did the interview with Gene, the main purpose of the interview was a play-by-play the night that Biggie got killed. Gene was legitimately there, so that part of the story was my focus.
Right.
Some of the other stuff that Gene was saying doesn't always match up. So, like, for example, like the timeline of Biggie, getting to the accident. I remember when we interviewed Little C's, he said, no, that's not at all how it happened. The timeline is all wrong. This happened first and so forth. So some of the stuff that Gene said hasn't been all that accurate. Now, the stuff the night that Biggie was killed was fairly accurate. But you actually said that Gene Deal's full of shit.
Yeah. There's something wrong with the guy. I first became aware of him when I started getting involved with this rap police nonsense. And everybody that worked with him said, stay away from him. He's like bad news. They don't know how he's keeping his job. There's always something he's up to. They're afraid of him. He's one of these guys, if he's, backed up against the wall, he gets brazen and everything else. And how he kept his job, they don't know. There was one incident in particular where these cops up in Harlem saw him acting suspiciously either in a car, by a car that had weapons on the backseat exposed. It was all sorts of nonsense, but he's a guy who, he talks like he's a street guy, but he was a member of a pseudo law enforcement agency where there was parole or probation.
He was a parole officer.
And but talks like he's a street guy and was around bad people. Like, if you got to be with one team or the other. So if you're a cop, you can't be around guys like Wolf and, all these other guys and drugs and illegal handguns and everything else, So listening to him now, it just seems like he's conveniently coming out and saying, dicey things here and there. No doubt he was exposed to, some interesting things over the years, but yeah, I heard he's threatening to beat me up on some video, but whatever.
So at one point, Murder Inc. gets dragged into a money laundering Fed case.
Right.
But there's some stuff in this case that wasn't really covered a lot, and that was a gambling operation.
Right.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so this agent, Fran Mace, brand new, right out of the academy, gets this case dumped in his lap. And I felt bad for him. So, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it because it's money. And, I failed algebra and everything else in high school. So that's what the IRS is for. And at one point, we're looking at these two-way pager records that we have. And definitely Chris, I think Irv as well, but are communicating with a guy named Brett Stay, who's a bookie out in LA, but he's the kind of bookie that, has the orthodontist at the golf course. He meets him and, hey, you want to bet on the Dallas game, guy? He's more of a bookie to the stars, the elitist kind of people in communities that you don't find a bookie on the corner, let's just say. And somehow or another, he says that they amassed of debt close to $900,000. And one way to work off the debt was that Chris had members of the entourage going to places of, high-end, enclaves in New Jersey where multimillionaires live, knocking on the door, having guys like BJ Bryan, I don't know if you know who BJ are, go and collect money from guys. So you can imagine you're from some stuffy white bread neighborhood in Jersey and guys pull up in an Escalade and it's BJ Bryan gets out knocking on the door. You want to pay these guys off as soon as possible. You don't want your neighbors know what's going on. And so apparently they were recouping money for this bookie because they were indebted to him. And he alleges that the Gotti brothers were betting the over and under on basketball games, which is not the greatest bet in the world to make because it's not, the odds are, it's, I don't know what they pay out, but it can't be that much. But apparently they had asked NBA players like Coutinho Mobley, Kobe Bryant to hit as many points as they could to hit the over. And
why would Kobe Bryant
be
involved?
Well, I'll get to that.
Point shaving or whatever.
Well, it's not point shaving because you're not holding back, let's just say.
Yeah.
You're not deliberately losing a game so that people will win money. You're doing better for your team. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but it's Kobe Bryant. He's like,
all right, but
he's been the number one guy in the NBA for quite a while.
He alleges that if you pull the tapes, you will see the games where that they're there, the Gottis, and that when they hit the points, at one point, I think it was Coutinho Mobley or something, jumps in the stands and they hug each other or something like that.
Okay.
When they hit the over. Again, this is the allegation made by a guy who's cooperating with us. Like he's saying, yes, I took their bets. Yes, they collected money for me. And by the way, they've been braggadocious about being able to do this. And so anyway, the IRS agent told the U.S. attorney's office, oh, this is great. We finally have interstate commerce, collecting debts, this and that, wire transfers. This is definitely a solid charge. And they said, no, we don't want to charge it because it looks like we're targeting the black community. We have, people in the music industry. Now we're going to involve sports. We're not doing it. And so they end up, losing the case. So years later, I'm retired. I'm at the Beverly Hills Hotel working the security detail for the Saudi royal family. And I'm with a girl named Susan Nelson, who used to be a Compton deputy, and she's got the contract. It's her gig. And so we're in the lobby. I go outside, having a cigarette or something. Who comes walking out but Chris Gotti? So I go, Chris, what's up, man? So he was like, hey, how you doing? So we bullshitted for a second, like, I'm okay. We have nothing to talk about, All right, hey, good luck to you, whatever. And he gets into a car and he leaves. Oh, no, he's waiting for a car. So I go into Susan, I go, who I just saw outside? A guy I arrested, this guy, Chris Gotti. She goes, Chris Gotti's outside? Where is he? And she goes, do you mind if I go talk to him? I go, well, I don't give a shit. So she runs outside and talks to Chris. So she comes back in, she goes, I used to bodyguard Kobe, and Chris used to throw these elaborate, poker games that Kobe used to play. And I used to escort Kobe back and forth from the games that Chris would throw. So that's why I believe there could be some truth to it. And if you want, call Susan Nelson on the phone. I don't know.
I mean, I know Chris Gotti. I don't know if he's going to admit to it, I mean, it's past the statute of limitations. I guess he could technically.
Look, this is something that this gentleman told. Here you are. You're running a bookie operation, right? And I come to you and I say, hey, you're running a bookie operation. I want to know about your clients. All right, I'll, whatever. I don't want any trouble. Yeah, I took bets from them. Yeah, whatever. And by the way, this is what they said the guys did. Why would you brag about something like that?
Yeah, but Kobe Bryant was one of the richest players in the NBA already. Why would he risk his career and his legacy over anything related to betting over sports? You've seen it happen to Pete Rose.
Maybe he was a big Ja Rule fan. You don't know.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. To the point where he throw his career away?
Listen,
Kobe Bryant?
Stranger things have happened.
That's pretty strange.
But listen, doesn't it make sense, though? And I'm not saying it's true or it's not true. I'm just saying what somebody said.
Okay.
And I'm following up with the fact that I was working this gig with the Saudi royal family, and the person I was working for, former Compton, former Kobe, she ran a security detail. And she says, oh, yeah, the way I met these guys was through Kobe going to these big high-stakes poker games.
I mean, did Kobe play poker? Sure. I totally believe that. Was he somehow involved in betting on his own games? That seems unbelievably far-fetched.
Well, you know what? If you...
This is not a bench warmer we're talking about who's barely scraping by.
Well, if you're going to ask Chris Gotti, ask him before the show airs. Don't wait till it's over.
No, I'm gonna call him up after this. I talked to Chris Gotti the other day, actually. Me and him have always had a good relationship.
Yeah, I heard his brother is sick. Irv
he had a stroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
He's recovering. But Murder Inc., at the end of the day, ends up beating their Fed case.
Yes.
Were you surprised?
No. I didn't second seat that trial because it was the IRS's case, but what I listened to, I didn't like. They had two of the best attorneys you could possibly get. They really tore apart witnesses. I had to testify at that trial, and it was, I had to read in, I think I was reading in the two-way page of records or something. I forget what it was. But yeah, they had Jerry Shargell and Jerry Lefcourt, two of the best attorneys you could possibly get for a case like that. And they beat the trial fair and square. The IRS agent felt it was weak, and he wanted to add in other, these other charges. He would have been more comfortable that way, and it would have exposed a different side to maybe the Gottis in it. Whether people believe the bookie or not, or would have believed him. Also, the bookie called and said that lawyers approached him and said, if the government comes to you, say you have an attorney and don't say a word. So whatever. But anyway, it's their association with Supreme, all the nonsense that they got involved in with 50 Cent, these beefs, being, trying to ruin 50's career, making, threatening people that if you sign them, we're not friends anymore, all this nonsense. I think they destroyed themselves with it. They were on top. And I don't know what they have left now, but, it's kind of, I was just out in Vegas and I saw Ja Rule was playing Vegas, but with like 5 or 6 other performers, in some theater there. So it's, you went from arenas to whatever. I mean, that can happen in careers, but I think Ja Rule probably had another album or two of really worthy stuff if they had stayed the course, so.
Well, Tupac. The quad shooting.
Okay.
There's a lot of theories about it. Were you involved in that case at all?
No. Like everybody else, the aftermath of it, what do you know? How can we prove this? That kind of thing. The way I heard it was, it starts off, I guess, with Tupac now is starting to feel himself as an artist. And he's also has those ties to the underworld. He wants to be a little bit of everything. And he comes across Haitian Jack and he starts mixing it up. And he's got, he's hanging out with Madonna. He's hanging out with Haitian Jack. He's got the stars. He's got the bad guys. And then the incident comes where he's arrested with Haitian Jack. For a rape in a hotel room.
Yeah, I interviewed the girl.
Did you?
Yes, her only on-camera interview.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I don't want to say who I think the other body is in that, but we could talk about it afterwards because I don't want to get fucking sued. But I believe it's a legitimate, 100% legitimate kind of date rape situation. And I think the girl's telling the truth and everything else. And so Haitian Jack has an attorney named Paul Brenner. And Paul was a PBA attorney at one point for the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. And he was the guy that was recommended to cops when the union wasn't covering whatever they needed help for, namely an off-duty arrest where, drunk driving, wife beating, something really serious. And, he was a capable attorney. Somehow or another, Jack comes across him. He tells Jack, just take a plea. They're offering you whatever. Take the plea and be done with it. And he does. And Tupac apparently expected him to take it to trial with him. We're going to beat this thing. And he was like, no, just whatever. So that sours their relationship. And, Tupac now gets called. Who is it to go? Was it Little Sean? Or,
yeah. Little Sean was recording at Quad Studios. Jimmy Henchman was managing him, and they were paying Tupac to show up and lay a verse.
Now, Little Sean's like a street guy, Little Sean's not like, he's not like Ja Rule, you know what I mean? Like, he's a real street kid. And I think he was running around with Scooter and those guys. Scooter, Smiley, all those guys. So he was no joke. He's up there, and then he comes to, Tupac comes to do the track, get a little cash. And, he's preyed upon by, members of, Jimmy's crew.
Is that real? Because there's always a gray area about this. Was it Jimmy Henchman who had him shot up?
Yes.
You're sure about this?
Well, I wasn't there, but yes. Everything that's been told to me, including Haitian Jack, will say it's Jimmy.
Okay, why would Jimmy have Tupac shot and robbed when he's coming up to record for his artist?
Well, according to Jack...
Because Jimmy Henchman was managing Lil Sean at the time.
Yeah, well, according to Jack, he had told everyone, leave that thing alone, leave it alone, whatever. But since Tupac did that interview with AJ Benza and he named Haitian Jack, they decided to do something about it. but they didn't intend on shooting him. They just wanted to smack him around, take his stuff, and that was going to be the end of it. Tupac had a gun in his waistband. He shoots himself in the abdomen a couple of times, and then shots ring out, and Tupac now blames everybody in the world for something that's so obvious. He blames Stretch, he blames Biggie, and he started to cause, it was the beginning of this East Coast, West Coast nonsense, and he put things on people they didn't deserve, and and then eventually he's convicted, he goes to jail, and an associate of Jimmy point blank told me in a conversation that they had him sexually abused in jail. So that's not something I like to throw around lightly. The person who told me, I didn't ask him any question in regards to what was prison life like for him, whatever. He offered it amongst other things in a very sober, casual manner, and said he was privileged to that happening. So, and that was supposed to have come from Jimmy's crew, that Jimmy had ordered it. So I don't know if it's true or not. I never investigated it. It was supposed to happen in Rikers, not in state prison. And I hear all these people talking about, it couldn't possibly happen in Rikers. Come on. You know what I mean? These things happen all the time. But it's up to people to whether they believe it or not, trying to remember, who was the director that Tupac worked with?
John Singleton.
Because he had made mention of something that he wanted to do a story. Do you think that is
right.
true, or do you?
So John Singleton was supposed to direct the Tupac movie, and there was a scene in there that was a rape scene in prison. When the producer found out about this, he got John Singleton kicked off the project, and he brought in Benny Boom. And I remember I heard this myself. There was a jail call between Suge Knight and someone where the guy was talking about Tupac getting raped in prison, as well as another scene that would have showed Tupac's mom, Afeni Shakur, in a lesbian relationship. And Suge basically said, well, yeah, they should put it out there because that's essentially the truth in so many words.
Right.
And of course, everyone kind of denies it. Oh, that would have never happened. Someone would have heard it. Word would have gotten around.
Well, it might, if it did happen, it might answer up for why Tupac was so crazy about this whole thing. But I think he was I think he had a touch of mental illness in him anyway. He really was, he was up and down, like a bipolar kind of thing, and he put himself in situations he never should have with this, with hanging out with the gangsters to, shooting at drunk off-duty, half-corrupt hillbilly cops down in Georgia, So he wasn't a good guy, you know what I mean? Like, people immortalize him. Like, when you die, it's like your ticket to, being immortalized and stuff. But he caused, to me, he caused the death of Biggie. And that, I think, is the biggest crime that happened out of all of this. So
a year after Tupac's quad shooting, Stretch gets killed.
Right.
And a lot of people wanted to say, oh, that was retaliation because people thought the Stretch set up Tupac. And then Tupac not going to Stretch's funeral sort of, added to the conspiracy of it all.
Right.
And because that was his close friend.
Well, there's a lot of talk about, who could have possibly known, whatever. Everybody knew. You know what I mean? If Little Sean told one of his friends, hey, I'm going and Pac's going to come by and whatever, everybody knew. You know what I mean? Like, and, Stretch was friends with everybody too. Why would it be a big secret to protect him? Like, nobody knew that anyone was going to come rob him at it, So all that stuff is nonsense. Stretch, I heard when he was killed, it had something to do with his brother Majesty, that they were looking for him.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So, yeah, that it definitely wasn't a Tupac hit. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, all this crazy stuff, all this conspiracy nonsense comes about, all this stuff, and it's easily explained away. But if you can't prove something, you can't prove it. And but when I heard about it, I thought I should, that it is history and it was told to me. So,
Well, Tupac gets killed in 1996. And I interviewed Keefe D, who's now in prison. Now in jail, actually, awaiting the trial over his involvement. But the story that Keefe told was that after Tupac and Suge and the Death Row guys jumped Orlando Anderson, Keefe and Orlando and their crew didn't have any guns. They went to go meet up with Eric Von Zip, who was with Foxy Brown at the time, and he gave them the gun. Do you think there's any truth in this? And Eric Von Zip is dead now.
Well, I think Keefe D was in a car and with people, and I think that makes sense that Orlando. Well, I don't believe any of the other stuff associated with the case for a variety of reasons. Simply this: one, I was a part of that task force. I was working the BMF task force, and I think that because of the connection with Wolf, they reached out to me and a DEA agent named Eric Henderson to help them out on the New York side of the investigation, finding guys like Little C's and people that they wanted to come and re-interview for the Biggie case. And so I was out in LA all the time. I became friendly with Greg Kading and members of his task force, and we'd meet and have drinks and things like that. There came a point where they told me, or Greg told me, that members of Puffy's entourage were driving guns across the country and to Vegas, and particularly for the Tyson fight, so that Puff and Biggie would have, and their entourage would have guns to protect themselves. So,
which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Loading up a car with guns and drive them from New York to Vegas is insane.
So now, I knew Von Zip, not personally. I knew him from investigations before this, and always had the air about him. He's a gentleman gangster. He was based out of like 118th and 8th Avenue in Harlem. Old school guy, knew Puffy's father, Melvin Combs, from back in the day.
He was also dating Puffy's mom.
Right. So that's a good connection. There's no way that this would happen. It doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, Biggie did not go. Puffy didn't go. Where's all the guns? Now there's only one. The story started to change as they told it to me, which means that it was a story that was like they were going over it with a cooperating source or defendant. And I didn't like the fact that it changed because if someone doesn't come in the beginning and tell me the absolute truth, it creates big problems down the line because I always memorialized everything. I'm not going to be one of these detectives where, you changed the story, I'm going to rip up that report, So and I just started to see some real inconsistencies with it. The other thing is how did Keefe D know that he had a gun? Did he see him in the casino and say, by the way, I have a gun. If you need it to borrow it, just let me know. Did they see him right after the aftermath and say, well, if you need a gun, I have one. You want to come get it? Does not make any sense to me whatsoever. So I think what happened is this. I think that Keefe D was being romanced by these detectives who desperately wanted to solve these cases. And when they spoke to him at length about their involvement in this task force and their interest in the Biggie and the Tupac case, and particularly Puffy, because they were hell-bent on Puffy being involved in this, that the story kind of morphed. And when you see that you need to get out of a long-term sentence, you can read the body language and of your interrogators. And you mention a name and you see them, whatever. And I think that Keefe D created a story that's bigger than it really was. I think that he was there. I think there was the gun there. I do not think that Zip would pass off a gun to anybody or be a part of that nonsense.
Well,
So
I do know that when Keefe started cooperating with Greg Kading, and this was in order to beat a PCP case where he was probably facing 25 years, they had him red-handed and basically said, cooperate or else you're going to jail for 25 years.
right.
I do know, according to Greg Kading, he even sent me the actual flight tickets that they flew Keefe D out to New York with a wire, allegedly, to try to set
I was
up.
there.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
So you were in New York when Keefe D was trying to set up Eric
we
Von
went
Zip?
up. We went up to the club, or we went wherever. I was retired, and they invited me because I worked on it. And
So you met up with Keefe D in New York?
I didn't talk to him. He was in a separate car, or whatever. But I went up with them to do the operation.
Okay, so this is a fact because when I interviewed Keefe D in his last interview before he got locked up, he said, "No, I never did that. I never went out to New York, whatever else." But this is true. He was flown out to New York and wore a wire to try to set up Eric Von Zip.
And I told him it was the most ridiculous idea in the world.
Because from what I understand, Eric Von Zip wasn't trying to touch it on any level.
If you wanted to try to get him in a conversation, what you do is you get Keefe D and 5 undercover detectives and say, "Hey, I'm in town. We're going out. Why don't you come join me?" and whatever. And have a crew of guys around you. You don't go back to a bar and say, "Hey, those were some days, you know." You know what I mean? Like, "Hey, remember the time you gave me that gun?" Come on. Who does shit like that?
Right.
Like,
Well, Greg Kading said that nothing came of it.
yeah, except it probably tipped him off. He probably figured like, "Oh, shit."
Right.
I mean, he was no dummy. He stayed out of jail for many years. And
he passed away from cancer eventually. So, the rumor is that Puffy, the story is, and, Keefe's going to try to push this in his trial, was that Puffy put $1 million hit on Tupac and Suge, and the money was ultimately paid to Eric Von Zip, and Eric Von Zip kept the money and bought a nightclub.
well, and how did he pay him? He give him a check?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, so Zip Code used to be a club called Jimmy's Uptown.
Yeah.
And then there's Jimmy's up in the Bronx, whatever. I'm pretty sure it's the same Jimmy he lost a lot of those clubs because he got arrested for money laundering or something over the years. And I know that it was Jimmy's Uptown was the club that Zip bought. So you didn't need $1 million to buy a club that got basically closed down by the feds for money laundering. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, Puffy's not going to give you $1 million because some LA gangbanger shot him because he beat you up in a casino. And I think Puffy probably said on numerous occasions, "We got to get those motherfuckers," or whatever.
Yeah.
But he didn't say, "Let's go talk in my office on Monday." That's why you have a guy like Zip too. Is, "Hey, Zip, I want someone to go kill this fucking guy." Whatever. Offer them whatever you can and see what they do. And, some LA gangbanger, right, who's desperate, he'd do it for much less than $1 million.
Less than a year after Tupac gets killed, Biggie gets killed in L.A. Were you involved in this case at all?
No.
Now, I used to always say I solved the Tupac murder. I say it, kind of tongue-in-cheek. I didn't solve anything. Only law enforcement can solve a case. But I did do Keefe's first interview, and that kind of laid out the whole story. Now, with Biggie's murder, it was always very gray area for me. There was too many different theories, and no one's ever really come forward and put themselves into it. But over the past year or so, talking to multiple people, I keep hearing the same name come up.
Is that Poochie?
Poochie.
Right.
Greg Kading said it's Poochie. Mob James said it's Poochie. Whack 100 said it's Poochie. When I interviewed Vanilla Ice, he also said it was Poochie. Not to say that any of them were actually correct, but you keep hearing the same name. Poochie was a mob Pyru who was somewhat affiliated with Suge Knight and Death Row.
Right.
Poochie is now dead. Whack 100 said that Eric Von Zip was the one who hired him. I don't know about that part. But Do you believe that Poochie killed Biggie? Because the other theory was there was a Muslim guy, a guy with a bow tie, Amir Muhammad, I think, who has come forward and said, I have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I think the Poochie thing, it's the best so far. Phil Carson, if you ever listen to him, he's a nobody. He's just trying to cash in on, what little involvement he had. Who was the detective? The poor guy who had the case.
Russell Poole?
Russell Poole had so many problems, like he retires a year before, he quits basically a year before retirement. And he's just, this whole thing is, why won't they listen to me? Here's the thing is, I wanted a prosecutor to go forward with a case. I said, we have enough. And they say, no, we're not going to do it. Well, I don't quit then. You know what I mean? I wait. All right. I'll get you some more. We'll wait it out. We'll do this. There's just so many things wrong with that case. Then you had Chuck Phillips got involved in it, and he had his theories. And so the whole thing was crazy. L.A. was a crazy place at that time where police chiefs' daughters were working for death row. And, Vegas PD doesn't trust the Compton PD. What a surprise, And here you had these great gang detectives working there, basically had the shit solved back in the day, but no one's going to listen to them because their department screwed up and LAPD screwed up. And, who do we trust, And those guys, Lad, and they get, those guys really were the real deal. And
I interviewed them.
They don't get enough credit for what they did back then, Can you imagine working in Compton? The gang guys in Compton, that's like nonstop. You don't stop working.
Timothy Brennan and Robert Ladd.
Yeah.
I interviewed both of them. So do you think Poochie was the shooter?
I think that this is probably it. Yeah, I would say so.
And who do you think hired him?
I would have to think that Suge did.
And do you think that it was simply, hey, you guys killed my artist, my top artist, so I'm going to kill your artist just out of sheer revenge and pettiness?
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah.
And Suge is the kind that will never actually talk, so we'll never really know.
What's convenient about all these cases is everybody's dead.
Suge is still alive.
Yeah, but I mean, the shooters are dead. If these witnesses had to take the stand, I think this poor woman, I think she'd be reluctant.
Suge's baby mother, I think, cooperated with Greg Kading, and that's what she laid out. But it's a bit fuzzy.
I don't like the fact that these people got outed. I think that's wrong. If I had to unceremoniously leave the NYPD before my time, I wouldn't run and grab my case folder like on, let's say it was a Murder Inc. case or something and we didn't have enough evidence. I wouldn't run out and write a book that exposes all my cooperators and informants. I think it was bad business. And the public doesn't have a right to know about police investigations that could jeopardize prosecutions and everything else, So, you could talk about guys who are dead, but you can let things out at that point, but whatever. One thing that's funny I want to tell you about Puffy to show you what a scumbag he is this kid, I knew all the paparazzi in West Hollywood and Hollywood, and I would be able to give them a call and say, could you do me a favor? There's a rap guy, he's going to be at this club in West Hollywood tonight. Could you take a picture of his entourage for me, So one guy I had doing it was this guy, Woody. He used to call himself the king of all paparazzi. And Woody called me and says, hey, Puffy and these guys are threatening to kill one of my friends. He's a paparazzi. He just so happens to be like a limo driver, and he was driving Puffy around, and Puffy happened to meet Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore in a hotel. And this is before Bruce Willis knew anything. This is before anyone knew anything. And they're coming out, and a photographer gets the shot. So the next day it's in the papers. So Puffy sends one of his guys to go threaten this paparazzi saying, I know you took the picture. You were there. Give us, $100,000 or, you're in trouble. The guy's name who threatened him was Paul Offord. I don't know if you ever heard of that name.
Big Paulie?
Yeah.
That's Puffy's head of security.
Yeah. So Paul said, you give us money, whatever, give us the camera, because I don't know what you're talking about. So he was threatening him with bodily harm. So anyway, it's easy to check out who sold the picture. They find out a day or two later, it wasn't him. And so I called him. I said, do you want to make a complaint? And he was like, no, I want nothing to do with this. He goes, the only reason I wanted someone to know is I thought they were going to hurt me. I thought they were going to kill me. He goes, that's how scared I was. So, but I mean, it's just little things like that, you don't have enough money. You want a cut of the paparazzi thing, or was that Paul on his own? I don't know. But either way, it's not a good organization to be a part of,
Speaking of photos, you actually have a couple of interesting photos that I've never seen before.
Yeah. So just real quick, I speak highly of Haitian Jack at times, and it people, don't quite understand. I arrested Jack because he had issues with his citizenship. And he was a predicate felon before he ever got his citizenship, even though he really grew up in the United States from a little kid up. And so I took advantage of that, and I rearrested him with the feds, and a U.S. attorney got him out of jail and said, you're paroled to us, basically, and if we need you to do something, you can do it, whatever. The problem is that I think with Jack is he was never going to tell you the truth, only if it suited him, and he didn't really have much to offer other than to give himself up for his life of crime. I mean, his life was a crime in progress, for crying out loud, So, so I kind of had like this friendly relationship with him, and I never utilized him as an informant, more like a guy I could have a conversation with about the industry and rumor mill and whatever. And Jack told me some really funny stories. He'd say like, hey, you think it's easy robbing drug dealers? He goes, I took a guy once and, we got these guys at gunpoint, and I go to get the bag, and all of a sudden the guy, he gets this look on his face like we're not the police kind of look. And everyone sees it, and they go to bum rush us. And I'm running with a bag that weighs about 75 pounds, and I got to put it down and fire shots, pick it up again and run, I mean, he's a colorful guy, and he would tell me these stories more about his life and growing up, as a kid from Haiti, basically speaking, a foreign tongue in a really tough neighborhood in Brooklyn. And that's the likable part of Jack, There's Jack who orders jewelry from people like Jacob and other people and then doesn't pay him back, or has Wyclef order jewelry and then steals it. And Wyclef will say, well, I didn't know, I didn't know he was going to do that, get money and favors from different people in the industry. So he was a creative guy. And the fact that he robbed drug dealers I didn't find it all that offensive. And Jack wasn't a killer. He wasn't a murderer or anything like that. So what happens is Jack tells me that he has this place, Crustacean, in Beverly Hills. Now, Crustacean is a high-end restaurant.
Yeah, no, I've eaten there.
Highly rated restaurant. And he would throw these little get-togethers afterwards. And I said, well, invite me to one. So I go to one, and I'm sitting at a table with Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder, So and he's got clout, And after we arrested Jack, Jack is with MC Light in a club called Monroe's down in West Hollywood on Melrose. And he has a beef with these guys. And so he escorts MC Light outside. Whoever else was with him comes back in with a gun, and he's chasing these guys around. They're diving under tables, and he's shooting at their legs and stuff. And he shot one or more, I forget. But I get a call from the sheriffs. They go, look, I just got a call asking if I knew who this guy Haitian Jack was because he just shot up Monroe's. He goes, what do you want to do? And he's your guy. He's paroled on your, say so kind of thing. And I was like, oh, shit. I go, well, let's not say anything for a while, because if I say anything, he's just going to take off. So a few weeks later, I call him. I go, hey, I'm going to be in L.A. I got something for you. I got your I got you your S visa. So figure I get him out. And I told him to come up to the Riot House, the old Hyatt House Hotel on Sunset. And he shows up and we jumped him. And that was the last day he saw the sidewalk in the United States of America. He was in jail ever since then. So he took a plea on the gun and he went back over it. But we had done a search warrant that day and we popped his safe. And he had some really fascinating, pictures, and I'll get them for you. When I look at all this stuff, I was like, this is a pretty amazing guy. How somebody didn't do a story about him, or 50's got this great company now down in Shreveport. These are the kind of shows that I would watch. I know there's a Murder Inc. show. They ought to do a Haitian Jack show, and there's just that era, man. Is just such a great era of, behind the scenes craziness in the music industry that, we'll never see again now that, the digital scene has killed everything, So, but I'm glad I got to be a part of those days. It was like a lot of fun running around out here and messing with all these guys. And, I wouldn't want to be on the other side of the gun that Jack was pointing at, but as far as gangsters go, he's definitely in my top 3 of interesting guys, creative guys, and people say he was a rat. Jack never gave. There's one thing I asked Jack for, and that was World's telephone number. And I said I wanted to call World on the phone, which I did, and fuck with him. And Jack was all about surviving. He was hanging out with your boy Ori Spotto.
Yeah, I interviewed Ori about that.
Ori's a mess. Is he alive? Ori?
Yeah, he texted me not too long ago.
Was he trying to get you on the show?
No, he was, I think he was pitching some people to be on my show.
Oh. Yeah, Ori's I ended up I covered meets with Ori in Midtown Manhattan. He was hooked up with all these guys. They were flying pot from like Canada to upstate New York, bringing the pot to New York, giving it to the Pagans motorcycle gang, who were then, swapping it for precursor drugs to make methamphetamine. It was this crazy story that only Ori Spotto could be involved with. But I became friendly with Michael Frances over the years, and Ori was a part of the downfall of Sonny Frances, in that John, in his addiction, had let Ori in and let Ori use his name and floated his father's name on things that got, an elderly man jammed up, and he never should have been. So I consider Ori to be, kind of evil guy in some ways, in that he seeks out fame and different things regardless of, without thinking about the outcomes and all that. But Jack never slept on his fucking couch. I'll tell you. Do you think the guy who's got President Clinton at Crustacean is sleeping on Ori Spotto's couch?
Well, Bill Courtney, I appreciate you coming in. I really, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I was glad I was able to get a hold of you and do this. A hell of a story, a hell of a life. And listen, at the end of the day, some people like the police, some people don't like the police, but I think everyone agrees that the police are necessary. And I think that if you take the police out of the equation, everyone's life would be a whole lot worse as a whole. And, you've taken a lot of bad people off the street. I think you've saved a lot of lives. I think you've, stopped a lot of violence from happening. I think you stopped a lot of drugs, from circulating. And at the end of the day, I appreciate you coming in and telling your story.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm a big fan of the show, and it's been fun. So thank you.
That's what it is. Until next time. Peace.